6 feet away from you. And we'd like to, first of all, before we honor the flag, we'd like to open up by honoring God our Father with a word of prayer, if we could. If you would come on in, we'll do that first, and then we'll do the pledge.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank everybody. We're delighted to have especially our chiefs here. But if you will bow with me for a moment of prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, we come thanking you for all your many blessings and asking for your guidance. We come, Father, asking you to direct this organization and everyone that is a part of it. Please help the partners, the members, the community to realize how important it is for us to be prepared for anything. We thank you, we praise you, and we honor you. And we ask your mercy upon our friends and neighbors in Louisiana and along the coast. Thank you, Father. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now, if we could honor our country as we sing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. We have some great guests here today. Not only Chief Mike Mulligan, we appreciate your attendance, sir. Very special Fire Chief Samuel Pena has quite the resume I'd like to share with you prior to him coming up here. Samuel Pena is a 26-year veteran of the fire service and has been chief of the Houston Fire Department since December 19, 2016. Chief Pena leads the third largest municipal fire departments in the country with approximately 4,000 personnel and an annual budget of over $516 million. He previously served 3 years and 9 months as fire chief in El Paso. Pena completed his paramedic training at Texas Tech University Health Science Center Division in 1998. He served previously as task force leader for the El Paso Hazardous Materials Team and Special Rescue Team, coordinator for the Combined Search and Rescue Mountain Rescue Team, Strategic Planning Chief, Public Information Office, Training Chief, and Assistant Chief of Emergency Operations. Chief Pena holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I didn't know that. Look at that. And a master's in business administration. Oh, look at that. From the University of Texas at El Paso, and served 4 years as command and control specialist in the U.S. Air Forces. Thank you for your service. Memberships: International Association of Fire Chiefs, Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association, National Fire Protection Association, National Association of Search and Rescue. He has been married for 30 years. Congratulations, sir. He has 2 sons, Sam Jr., 29, and Daniel, 25, and 2 grandchildren, which I know are the best. Yes. Leonardo and Mavi Lucia. Man, it's good to have you here, sir. Samuel Pena, if you wouldn't mind coming up and share with us. Man, you are a very talented man.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna sit, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna remove my mask.
Okay.
So you all can hear me appropriately. I want to first thank you all for the hospitality and for the invitation, for the response task force for allowing me to be here, and to my colleague, Chief Mike Mulligan from the Atascocita Fire Department, for allowing me in his backyard, and for the friendship that we share. We're certainly partners in public safety, and I appreciate his commitment to the community and his commitment to ensuring that as a region, we're providing the service that the community expects. So I would like to first start by thanking the public that's joining us via Facebook, I believe, for the hospitality and allowing me to be here, and just to speak a little bit about what the Houston Fire Department provides in terms of service to the community. and to talk a little bit about the Houston Fire Department. We are, as was mentioned earlier, we are the third largest municipal fire department in the country. We have nearly 4,000 uniform members and a little over 100 civilian staff that function as support for our firefighters. We are a full-service fire department. We not only respond to fires of all types, but we also provide ambulance service, both basic life support and advanced life support. In addition to that, we are the primary response agency in Houston for hazardous materials emergencies, for rescue types of emergencies. We're also the primary agency to respond to flooding and evacuation emergencies. And so we really, anytime anybody calls 911, chances are you're going to get the Houston Fire Department in response. In addition to that, we do have partnerships with our neighboring municipalities. Tascasita happens to be one of them. And we have mutual aid agreements, again, to provide resources back and forth to ensure that we're providing our community, as I mentioned, the response and the attention that it needs. You know, one of the things that 9/11 and Harvey taught us is that even the largest fire departments in the country at some point may need some help. So it's important for us to have those relationships with our neighboring municipalities to ensure that as a community we're looking after each other. It's important that we have those relationships before an emergency happens, right? That way, when the inevitable happens, we can more seamlessly be able to assist each other in the service delivery to our communities. We're going to talk about three different subjects. We're going to talk a little bit about the house fires, and we'll start with that. We have a new report from the Nfpa. Actually, the report was issued in 2019, so it's the latest one. And it shows and reflects a trend that's been happening over the last more than a decade, in that the majority of the fire responses, the majority of the fire type calls happen in single-family homes. In single-family residences is where they happen. Almost a quarter of the fires happen in those structures. Okay? The sad thing is that the majority of the deaths and injuries happen in these fires, in these types of fires. So almost 80% of the deaths that occur in single-family homes. The main reasons that for these fires are cooking accidents are one of the major reasons for home fires. Electrical fires that happen as the facilities age and as the homes get older and the maintenance on these homes lapses, the more susceptible they are to these types of fires. So electrical fires are the next ones. And then smoking fires, smoking accidents. Okay? The majority of the deaths happen because of smoking accidents. The majority of the injuries happen because of cooking accidents, according to the Nfpa report. And here in Houston, we follow that trend. We respond to approximately 345,000 calls for service each year. The majority of those calls, about 90% of those calls, are EMS work, medical response. And that is the same across the industry for the most part. The fire departments have become the primary emergency medical service delivery system in most municipalities. Our fire demand is, as far as structure fires, we get about 1,000 fires per year. About half of those are in single-family homes in residence. Okay? The rest of them are apartments, commercial fires, and we get about 300 to 400 that are actual working fires. Okay? The majority of the time, the initial company arrives and they're able to extinguish the fire and control the fire in the room of origin. We have a small percentage of those fires that actually progress to where we have to deploy additional units and personnel into these structures to combat the fire. So they're a small portion of our overall demand work, but it's a crucial component of what we do. As I mentioned, the majority of the calls that we respond to are EMS work. And we have, in Houston, we have 103 ambulances that respond and handle the majority of those calls. We are, like most municipalities, deploying the heavy apparatus, right, to handle some of these medical calls because we just don't have enough ambulances at the moment. So strategically, most fire chiefs are having to deal with that disparity in demand as opposed to capacity with the right units, ambulances. And so we're no different. You know, Houston is no different, just on a different scale. As I said, we have about 4,000 employees. Yes, sir.
Question regarding equipment and challenges of lack of ambulances. Is it true that the fire trucks typically are fully equipped for EMS type of situations?
Right, yes, sir. And the answer to that is yes. For the Houston Fire Department, and I want to speak specifically about the Houston Fire Department, although most other municipalities function and are structured in a similar fashion. The Houston Fire Department, on the heavy apparatus, on the fire trucks and the ladder trucks, we do staff those with at least EMT basics. They have a fire certification, but they're all certified to at least the EMT basic level. Some of them have paramedic certification as well, but at least the EMT basic. Our ambulances are staffed with paramedics, the ALS units, and we have basic life support units that are staffed with 2 EMT basics. Okay, so, but every fire truck, every fire apparatus has at least an EMT basic. That is why we're able to deploy them a lot of times to serve as the initial arriving unit until an ambulance becomes available and can respond to the emergency. You know, strategically, what we're working on is what we would like to do. Let me say it this way, and what we're working towards is to be able to deploy the right resource to the right call. If it's an EMS call, then we would like to deploy an ambulance to those calls and not have to deploy heavy apparatus because it's very expensive to run those heavy units. On some of the aerial apparatus, the large ones with the ladder trucks on, or with the ladders on, I get about a mile to the gallon on those things. And the maintenance and operation of those apparatus is very expensive. You know, every one of those units is at least $1 million. So they're not designed to be running the way we're running at the moment. The fire apparatus, the engine companies, those are about $500,000 as well. So they're not cheap. The ambulances, on the other hand, will run you about $150,000 to $200,000. And even though they're not as cheap as we would think, it's still, they're designed for that type of work. And it's a lot more efficient and cost effective to replace those and maintain those than the heavy apparatus. So ultimately, what myself and my staff are working on is trying to increase the capacity of ambulances, and which will reduce the demand on the heavy apparatus, which will, in the end, extend the life expectancy of those trucks. So it's a more effective and a more efficient way and more responsible way to spend taxpayers' money, right? But still deliver the service that the community expects. We know what the demand is. The demand is EMS rescue. You know, we have an aging population in Houston, and with that, what we anticipate is more EMS demand. And so we have to start preparing for that, and start deploying our resources and allocating our resources appropriately. Speaking of EMS, right now we are dealing with the pandemic. And the coronavirus really has thrown a monkey wrench in our expectation and in the way we deploy our units and how we service our community. In the past, you know, the goal was to get on the truck, get to the emergency call as quickly as possible, and get to the patient as quickly as possible, right? To try to make the most positive impact on the outcome of that call. With the coronavirus, our deployment model has changed a little bit. We still jump on the truck efficiently, respond to that incident efficiently, but as we approach a patient, we're taking a little bit more time. Okay? And instead of putting all our resources in at one time, what we're doing, the Houston Fire Department is doing, is we're sending our initial firefighter in their full personal protective equipment. They make an assessment of the patient, and then the additional resources are called in. The reason for that is we're trying to limit the exposure to our firefighters and to our patients, okay? Because one of the game changers with the coronavirus is that we are able to, theoretically, spread the virus without having any symptoms ourselves. When that information became available to us, that was really a game changer in that our firefighters, one, if they're sick, they won't come to work, okay? But theoretically, they could be carrying this virus, not have any symptoms, and could potentially be infectious to our patients, right? So the reason we require our firefighters to wear their masks, their goggles, their gloves on every call is not only for their protection, but the protection of our patients, okay? We have a responsibility to ensure that that happens as well. So things are having to slow down a little bit in our deployment, in our response. Doesn't mean we're going to get to your emergency any slower, okay? But we are going to be more cautious as we approach that hazard zone.
Assessments and triage.
Assessments, triage, and everything are going to just take a little bit more time. And even at that, with all the protections that we have in place, the support that we provided to our firefighters, you know, I'm happy that we were able to provide our firefighters with all the tools and the equipment that they needed to do their job safely from the start of this pandemic. And one of the reasons, and I think Chief Mulligan can attest to this and back me up on this, is that our responsibility as fire chiefs is, regardless of the type of or the strain of flu that we're dealing with each year, we have a responsibility to provide our firefighters with the personal protective equipment to safely do their job. So one of the things that we did moving into this fiscal year, this current fiscal year, which started or the previous fiscal year, let me say that, which started July 1st of last year, is that we make an allocation for personal protective equipment, okay? And we had a stockpile, essentially, of masks and gowns and goggles and gloves in place in anticipation for the flu season that happened last fall. And so as we moved into this year, and when the pandemic hit, we were better prepared than a lot of other fire departments were with equipment, which really allowed us to survive that time when there was a limit in the supply line of personal protective equipment. Everybody was scrambling for it, not only fire departments and hospitals, but the general public was really placing a lot of demand on masks and personal protective equipment. So that hurt the supply line of PPEs for our department. In addition to that, the majority of our supply comes from China. So that pipeline was broken at some point. So we were, never in my 26, 27 years of fire service did I think that I was going to be looking and searching for PPE. And we were reaching far and wide. We had shipments coming in from Mexico. We had a vendor that had equipment in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East. And so, never did I think that that's what we were going to do, the business that we were going to be in. No. And so there were some challenges, but we are very proud of the fact that even with all the work that we had to do in the background to ensure that our shelves were stocked at the street level, our firefighters never went without the personal protective equipment that they needed. So, and that was a huge, huge achievement. Because this thing was really, really contagious. Again, even with all the protections that we had, with all the equipment, with all the support, the protocols that we were put in place, at one point we had over 300 firefighters that were in quarantine due to exposure to coronavirus. That had a real domino effect, a negative effect on our ability to keep our units staffed. Okay? Because when you take 300 firefighters out of the game, so to speak, and sideline them, then that means that in order to keep our unit staffed, the ones that are healthy are having to work additional shifts. And we had firefighters that were working 2 or 3 shifts at a time consecutively. And like this is not, it is not an easy task because every day we run about 1,000 calls for service. So there is really no easy day. And it was wearing on our firefighters. It still is because we're still in the thick of it. And it wears on them, not only physically, but psychologically. You know, they're afraid of catching something that they can take back to their family and expose their families. And so it's an issue that we're having to deal with. The mental health aspect of this is something that we're going to be contending with. Luckily, we have a staff psychologist on our payroll that is focused on providing the help that our firefighters need in order to deal with these issues. And it's a requirement. Look, it's really hit the Houston Fire Department hard this pandemic. We've lost 3 firefighters. We've had 3 line of duty deaths as a result of the coronavirus, and it's devastating. You know, it's devastating for departments, and it has an effect on morale. It has an effect on our personnel's mental health, and so it's really a concern of mine and something that we are focused on addressing and ensuring that our personnel are receiving the help that they need to combat this and to get past it. So, very proud of our folks, what they've been doing through very arduous and austere times for them. I couldn't be more proud of the Houston firefighters and what they've been able to do in these last 6 months and throughout the year. And then we have to deal with what Mother Nature throws at us as well. You know, we've had several storms, several hurricanes that have threatened the area and actually hit the area, and they have responded tremendously. We have done several things since Harvey. Harvey was just, it seems like a lifetime ago. It was just 3 years ago when it hit and devastated this region. One of the things that I was brand new on the job. I was 6-7 months on the job when Harvey hit. And one of the things that we realized is that we were under-resourced as far as equipment. We had plenty of personnel, but we didn't have any place to put them. Okay, our mission and our focus as a fire department is a little different than the police department. The police department could take 500 individuals, 500 police officers, put them at the George R. Brown, give them a radio and their service weapon, and they can provide security and work there. Fire department, we're staffed different and we deploy different. Okay, we need apparatus or units to staff. When the call comes in, we deploy them. They take care of the emergency and they come back in service. So we can't just have a bunch of firefighters without a unit or something to replace them, right? So that's what we were dealing with. We didn't have any high water vehicles. We had boats that were 15, 20 years old. The maintenance on them was probably had been the best. And so we got our first high water vehicle on Friday, the 24th, when Harvey made landfall in Rockport. That day we received our first high water vehicle, and it affected hundreds of rescues. You know, that's exactly what we need. Happy to report that for Houston, since that time, we have increased the number of high water vehicles tenfold. Now we have 10 high water vehicles. We have 20 boats. We've initiated a water strike team of 140 firefighters that are specially trained and equipped to be able to staff and function in these environments. We've provided them with the right equipment, again, and the right training to ensure that they're safely able to do their job. And that has paid dividends. I mean, we had Imelda that hit last September, and we were able to efficiently respond to those emergencies. We were busy up here in the Kingwood area on that storm, and we were able to deploy units and safely do the best that we could to evacuate people from harm's way. So we're in a lot better position, but there's still a long way to go. Right? What we're doing to ensure that we're providing an efficient use of the taxpayers' money is we're finding ways to where we can do double duty for our apparatus. One example is we have these brush trucks that we're purchasing now for the wildland urban interface areas. They sit a little higher. They have all the equipment they need for a booster type truck, but they're modular. We can remove those cabinets, and they provide seats. And now they double as high water vehicles. So we've got one in our fleet. We have 4 more that are in the pipeline. That's going to increase the number of high water vehicles that we have available for the region to 14. So again, I think in the face of adversity, I think there's always opportunity to learn and to get better, and that's what we're working on. Trying to do the most efficient thing that we can do with the taxpayer money, and still deliver the service that's required. Right? One of my assistant chiefs asked me, sometimes it seems overwhelming, right? And he asked me if I ever get discouraged in that things don't happen fast enough, right? I mean, it's a city and it's a bureaucracy, and the procurement takes a long time, securing funds takes a long time, the bills take a long time. So, and my answer to that is not really. I think we're moving in the right direction, and my job is really not to be pessimistic or optimistic. My job as a fire chief is to ensure that when somebody calls 911, that there's really no doubt as far as what's going to happen, right? And they're going to get somebody arrive at their front door to do the best they can do and try to make a positive impact on the situation.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
With that, I will take any questions if you have questions. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, I got a couple of questions. Chief, thank you so much for coming. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate you doing this. The first one, would you address I understand that HFD, Costa City ordered all the, obviously, people that you guys are down there joint dispatching. I'm calling it joint dispatching, but it's where the dispatcher dispatches the nearest unit, whether it be Costa City or Houston or Porter. Is that working, and is that something that you guys think is going to be really good?
Yes. So the question was, I'm not sure if I need to repeat the question. The question was, do we have a joint or a common dispatch center right between Houston, Tascasita, Porter, and just the surrounding municipalities? What I can say is that we have established mutual aid agreements between the agencies. And we're almost at 100% as far as mutual aid agreements with the surrounding municipalities. I know we're working on something to enhance what we have with Tascasita as well. And it's based on an as needed and our capabilities to be able to service those requests. But no, it's important. It is important that we have those in place. I can tell you that the ones that are in place have been working adequately, right? And for the most part, we, as far as Houston goes, has been able to service those calls for requests. And recently, I haven't had any reports that when we request assistance that we've been denied. So from what I gather, at least recently, they've been working adequately. There's always room for improvement. I wish we could get on a common CAD, right, computer-aided dispatch, that way it would be seamless. But that's a bigger threshold to cross.
So it's still working more as a mutual aid?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And which is, you've been doing that for
Quite a while. Yes, sir.
My second question is, there's, with the rioting and everything that's been going on around the country, and the call for defunding the police departments, I think what they're actually going to do is take some of the funds from the police department and put it towards mental health workers. Is the HFD, are y'all going to be involved in that? In other words, when made and you guys respond with an ambulance, will your people be trained as mental health workers to handle those situations separately from the police department, or is that something that you're going to have to work through the hospital division?
Yeah, so let me just say that the whole defund the police is something that I am not on board with. You know, I can tell you that the police department, from my perspective, they have a tremendously difficult job. You know, anytime they respond to everything. You know, domestic violence calls, psychological type calls, and so. I don't know that defunding, taking money from their budgets and redeploying them is probably the best. I would recommend that they just invest more in these other mental health aspects. The fire department are on a lot of the same calls. We respond jointly with these law enforcement agencies, and so we're dealing with the same type of patients. What I can say is that just from what we've seen, I mentioned that we run about 345,000 calls for service each year. About 90% of those are EMS calls. Of those EMS calls, about 60% of them are basic life support, you know, basic trauma type calls. And a full 25% of those are repeat customers, okay, are frequent flyers, whatever the term is that you want to use. And our threshold for that is anybody that calls for service 2 or 3 times per year. That may seem like a very low threshold, but if you really think about it, most people go their entire life and never have to call 911. So those that use the system 3 or more times per year are what we found is that they don't really need the most expensive taxi, which is the ambulance, to take them to the most expensive part of the hospital, the ER. What they need is access to the right social service. And that's where, as a community, we need to do a lot better. Whether it's an investment in a third agency that deals with these psychological problems or whatever it is, I don't know that that's the answer. What I do know is that there are agencies and programs and nonprofits that already exist to service a lot of the things that we're dealing with. Sobering centers, people that are non-compliant with their medication, people that are having trouble with, that live by themselves and have issues dealing with that. I believe that the fire departments are well suited and well placed to be able to start effectively farming out those requests, because we know who these people are. I mean, we respond to them. Sharing information, sharing communications with those agencies that are designed to help some of these people with their social, with their need, is probably where we have been missing the mark, right? That's where we need to be more robust in assisting, in making those connections, in navigating those patients to gain the right social service and support that they need. The Houston Fire Department has an Ethan program, and Ethan is not just some guy's name. It's actually an acronym. It's the telehealth. It's our telehealth program, right? The AN in Ethan is the N navigation part. That's where we're actually navigating that patient. What that's designed to do is we respond to a 911 call. The EMT makes an evaluation of the patient. They decide that this patient doesn't really need a transfer to the hospital. They either need an appointment to their doctor, they need to refill a prescription, they need whatever it is that they can handle at that moment or by some other agency. They will dial up a Skype. The patient will now talk to a doctor via this program, and then they can attend to that patient a little bit better. Right? And it avoids the transport, it avoids the cost, it avoids the cost of the system. And for us, it places our units back in service for the next call quicker, right? So there is a definite benefit in that program. And I think that's where we can make our biggest impact is just funding a program that is designed to help those needs of the patient. But I'm not a fan of taking from one department that's already underfunded and diverting those to some other project. I think as a community, if we're serious about addressing those issues, we have to find a way to fund an additional program without cannibalizing public safety departments that are already understaffed and under-resourced.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was a long answer to your question.
But a very good
I hope
one.
I landed the plane.
You did, Larry. I think you did.
Chief, I'd also like to echo the thanks. Thank you very much for coming today. You mentioned Nfpa. For the benefit of our audience, can you explain what that is?
Sure.
And what has Houston adopted today? And also, if you could tell us, you mentioned about the mental health needs of the firemen. Are they likely to avail themselves to those resources, and how's that going?
Right. Okay. The first question was NFPA, what it stands for. It's the National Fire Protection Association, and it's a group of industry experts that provide input for and develop standards not only for fire but for other not agencies but other industries, electrical, plumbing. They have involvement in standards. They develop standards for other industries as well. For us, the NFPA, there are some that are specifically designed to provide standards for the fire service. One of the main ones is NFPA 1710. That speaks to how we respond, right? How we're deployed and staffed and respond. But we have a variety of NFPA standards, anywhere from, like I mentioned, deployment to our bunker gear to our communications, how we process the 911 calls. They have so NFPA is really touches a lot of different industries. They are a standard, right? That sort of a benchmark that we try to shoot towards as an organization. But it's not a law unless it's adopted by a regulating agency. Right? One of the NFPA standards that has been adopted and essentially carries the weight of the law is NFPA 1851, which speaks to the gear that our firefighters wear. Right? It talks about how it should be built, when it should be, how it should be cared for, how it's properly used, and that's been adopted by the Texas Commission on Fire Protection. The Texas Commission on Fire Protection regulates regulated departments, paid departments. So by virtue of them adopting that standard, it's essentially carrying the weight of law, and we have to adhere to those standards. It's not easy, and it's very costly, especially for a department the size of Houston, because they have to buy 4,000 sets of gear. Each one of those is almost $3,800 a piece, so it's very costly. But it's essential that we're providing our firefighters with the right equipment, and so it's certainly a burden financially, but it's the right thing to do for us to be able to ensure the safety of our firefighters. And so the other question, I'm sorry, the other question was, the mental health. So the mental health issue for the fire service or any public safety agency is critical for us to take a focused look at the impact that our firefighters have as a result of their job. Right? The PTSD is a real thing. It's certainly our military veterans who've been fighting our nation's war now for, this generation for the last 20 years almost. Right? And we know the effects that trauma causes psychologically and the effect it has on their mental health. Our firefighters and our police officers experience the same thing. It's just a chronic exposure to the traumas of the job that really they start storing and they start carrying with them, and it's something that is affecting our personnel. The incidents across the industry of alcoholism, suicide rates, and just domestic violence, and all those ills that result from just the exposure, I believe, to the daily traumas of the job is something that we're, as an industry, we have to acknowledge, and we have to start addressing. Okay, because in a 20-year career, firefighters will see things that most people who in their entire lives do not have to be exposed to, but they see it constantly on a daily basis. So an investment in the mental health aspect is critical. Critical incident stress debriefings, having protocols in place that address the immediacy after the exposure to a traumatic event, and having peer support personnel, having critical incident stress management personnel, having psychologists, having just therapists that are available to our personnel is something that should be implemented in every department's budget, right? Because just like we talked about in Nfpa 1851 and the care for our bunker gear, our protective gear, the care for our personnel is just as critical, if not more, right? To ensure that our primary resource, our people, are well taken care of is certainly something that needs to be invested on and something that strategically we need to plan for and ensure that we're providing for.
Very cool.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
One of our partners asked you to speak about the Forest Cove townhome fires.
Yes. The Forest Cove townhome fires, right? So I did ask about those units. What I understand is that there is a strategic plan to purchase those and do something with, build. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to plan is to build on those things. What I can tell you right now is that if those properties are unsecured, it's the property owner's responsibility to ensure that they're boarded up and secured. And if that's not happening, then that needs to happen. I mean, we have arson fires are real. What we've seen, and this is just anecdotally, okay, as a result of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of vacant businesses, vacant buildings, and we have had a slight uptick in the number of structure fires. I'm not saying one is related to the other. I'm just saying that it's the building owner's responsibility to ensure that those properties are secure and that we prevent illegal entry into those properties. But I'm not sure what the Harris County's plan is to acquire those properties that you're talking about. But in the interim, it could be a hazard if they're unsecured.
One of their questions was they have 4 complexes burned as of right now. Are those being considered as arson fires?
So I don't know that they're considered as arson fires. I know that every fire that we have within our jurisdiction, we have an arson investigator assigned to it, and they have to determine the cause and the origin. Until the time that they make a final determination, I can't say that they're arson. Okay? But if they're vacant, and there are no utilities going into those buildings, we can infer certain things, right? Especially if there's again no electrical or gas or anything going into those buildings. But until the fire marshal, the arson investigator, determine the cause and origin, it will remain undetermined. So I can't say yes, they were arson or no, they were not. But I can tell you that we do investigate every single incident.
Mr. Pena,
All right.
you are awesome.
Well, thank you for the hospitality. Again, I want to thank you for inviting me to your backyard. I want to thank Chief Mulligan for allowing me to come in here and speak a little bit to this community. And I appreciate the invite.
Oh,
And
we appreciate you taking your time, sir, because we know you are a busy man.
we all are.
Well, sometimes. And we have a little gift for you.
Wow.
Some goodies and a card, and knowing that CRTF ladies, there's no telling what is contained within this envelope or this box. So open with care.
Okay. Okay. We will do anything for a certification, a T-shirt, or some pastries.
Oh, there you go. And I don't blame you.
Well, thank you. I want to thank your audience and thank you for.
Yeah. Well done. Well, we want to go ahead
Let me
and,
protect you from me here.
hey, the feeling's mutual. But it's all good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. We love what you do.
Thank you.
We honor you. May God bless you and your family. I know that a lot of people don't realize that being in a position like such as yours, in a first responder, the responsibilities of the staff, the hours, I talked about the PTSD, it's all forms, and the family members go through it as much. So hats off to your lovely family.
Thank you.
And for 30 years.
31 years.
31 years of marriage, congratulations on that. That's very, very commendable. And we just want you to continue going forward, not only with your beautiful family.
She still looks the same as the day I met her.
Well, you're a handsome man yourself, you know that.
That's how you make 31 years, brother.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Peter, and we appreciate everyone that has joined us today and taking the time to view and your questions, and we look forward to our next meeting. We hope that you would join us for that as well. Until then, God bless you guys. Have a fantastic week. Stay safe and stay in touch with us at CRTF.